Hello and welcome to Saturday Agenda. I'm David Speers. The stakes were high in Parliament this week for both sides of politics. One of the biggest reforms of the Australian economy was being debated, the Rudd government's emissions trading scheme. Depending on who you listened to, it was either about saving the planet or destroying jobs. But in the end, it was like watching a slow-motion car crash. The outcome was inevitable. The Greens, the Coalition and the crossbenchers all voted the scheme down, voting against the Rudd government's plan. But that's not the end of the story. In fact, if anything, the Senate defeat of the government's ETS hits the reset button on this climate debate. The pressure now will be on both sides to try and reach a compromise or face the prospect of an early double dissolution election. Coming up, we're going to look back at the week in Parliament and where to now for Kevin Rudd and Malcolm Turnbull in this debate. Our panel, Andrew Probyn from the West Australian and Josh Gordon from the Sunday Age. First, though, to the news this morning that the Rudd government may be again trying to slug the rich to rein in its deep budget deficit. A report in the Weekend Australian newspaper suggests that the government has asked Treasury to crunch the numbers on hitting homes worth more than $2 million with capital gains tax. Jennifer Hewitt from the Weekend Australian joins us now. Jennifer, talk us through what you guys are reporting this morning, what you understand the government is doing.
Well, the Australian's Adele Ferguson has a story this morning saying that the government is looking at this possibility that it has asked Treasury to do some modelling on the prospect of capital gains taxes for family homes worth over $2 million. Now, obviously, that's a very, very sensitive issue, and that's all part of the Henry Review on tax. There's no certainty, absolutely, that the government will do this, but obviously, it's looking at this as part of its, wide-ranging review into tax.
Now, $2 million sounds like a lot of money, but as you would know, living in Sydney, there are a lot of homes there, and Melbourne and Perth, and no doubt other cities that fall into that category. A lot of homes would be hit by this sort of measure, and capital gains tax it has been exempt on the family home, but this would hit a lot of people.
Well, it probably wouldn't actually hit that many people, as you might imagine. Apparently, according to research the Australian has had done by BIS Shrapnel, it would affect about 10,000 homes that are sold each year out of the 500,000 homes that are sold. So in that sense, it's not that much. But of course, the political significance and the sensitivity of the issue, I think, is very great. The catch for the government is that there'd be, I think, a lot of furore about this, and there'd be a lot of fears from people kind of wondering whether this was a good idea, and yet it wouldn't actually save the government that much money or gain the government that much money. According to the BIS Shrapnel estimates, about $125 million a year. Now, no one's going to sneeze at $125 million a year. However, in the context of the budget deficit, it's actually not that much, and the government would have to work out whether it was worth the political pain.
Well, just on that, as you say, it would be a drop in the bucket compared to the billions of debt that the government has to deal with. But when you talk about the political pain, could there be political gain as well for the Rudd government in once again being seen to slug the rich, as it's done with, or it's trying to do with the means test on the private health insurance rebate and other areas?
Well, look, it's obviously, easier to do that, to slug the rich. I mean, there's always going to be, a reasonable amount of the population that think that's a very good idea, depending on how it's sold. But I also think there'd be a lot of unease about this, and particularly in places like Sydney, where, as you said, a lot of houses, people regard $2 million. Sure, that's an expensive house, but people would be nervous. I think, is this the beginning, of capital gains on homes that are cheaper, or what happens if our house does go up, in years to come, And so I actually think there would be quite a bit of political pain, and that is also going to be very problematic for the government, given that it actually wouldn't raise that much money. So the modelling, however, is being done, and I think it just demonstrates that the government is searching, high and low, really, to try and find some savings, and also to actually get the tax system on a better footing, which is going to be a very, very difficult issue.
And we should point out this wouldn't happen just in isolation. If it is part of the Henry Review, no doubt it would form part of an overhaul of the entire tax system. They're looking also at negative gearing rules that could see some significant changes across housing investment as well as the family home that's the owner-occupied home as well. It wouldn't just be something in isolation, would it?
No, it would not be in isolation, and obviously, there'd be all sorts of issues to be considered. Negative gearing, obviously is another one that is extremely sensitive. I think once you get in the way of Australians' love affair with their houses, either as their own homes or as investment properties, the politics of that always becomes very fraught. Now, whether the government is prepared to still go down that route, time will tell.
Jennifer Hewitt, stay with us. We'll take a break and back with the rest of our panel.